Welcome to another episode of the Hallelujah Acres Gardening Guide. I'm Willie Murray, and today we're going to talk about pruning blueberry bushes. That's a popular plant and it's a great fruit to have in your diet, so we would like to grow those in our yards if we can as part of our edible landscaping. In front of me here I've got some tools that you might want to have available in order to accomplish this pruning task, and doing it at this time of year in mid to late winter when the plants are dormant is really a good time to accomplish it. I've got several different types of pruning shears here. I've got some really large loppers, I've got some smaller loppers, and then I have some little handheld pruners. And those also work quite well, especially if you're removing smaller things or your bushes aren't too large. If you've got large limbs, you might want to go with the larger pruning shear so you have some leverage, and it also opens to a very wide caliper. You can also use, in some cases where you may not be able to get the handles of these in, a small pruning saw, and these are extremely sharp. They have a button that releases them so you can fold them up and you can actually carry them in your pocket. And they are a handy tool to have in some situations. So let's take the loppers and go over and take a look at our bush. This bush here is a mature specimen that's been here for quite a few years, and it hasn't really had the regular pruning that it needs. So it's got some problems with overgrowth that we need to try to thin out. So if you take a look at the plant, you can see that there's branches that have a light-colored grayish bark, and in some places it's peeling, but it definitely shows that it's an older wood, especially when you compare it to some of the new growth, which is reddish in color and looks a lot more vigorous. It's growing very upright and straight. So what we'd like to do is try to remove about 1/3 of the older wood from the bush each year once it's reached maturity. And we also would like to remove some of the growth that's extremely twiggy, like this right here. See, you've got a lot of little tiny branches that are very close together, very crowded, and some of them are even just dead. They just snap right off because they're just dried out and brittle. So we're going to remove something like that because it's so twiggy and it's non-productive. And I'll just cut it here with the loppers and just pull that right out. Now in doing that, I've removed some of the young growth, but most of it wasn't particularly vigorous. And I've also made room for some new growth that's coming from the roots of the plant. And this is vigorous young growth canes that are growing up that help expand the plant and will provide us with more fruiting wood in the years to come. Now if you look behind where I removed that growth, you'll see there's another problem that we need to resolve. And I've got some old wood coming up with some branches, and the branches are so close together that they're actually rubbing and competing with each other. And the best thing to do in a situation like that is to take our loppers again and remove that old wood and cut out some of the competing material. So I've cut that one that was growing up there, and it was bent and broken, and I've pulled that out, and I've made room now for these two vigorous growing branches to take off and not have that rubbing effect, which might introduce disease by having an open scar on the surface of the tree bark. You know, we can look at some other things that need pruning. I've got some more. This bush is competing with the one next to it. I've got this not very vigorous growth here, and it's twiggy, and I'll cut that off and remove it. I've got another limb that's competing right here, and I'll step in and I'll remove that. And I think if I look carefully, I can see that this branch is growing up and crowding the center of the bush. So really what I need to do is move it in and cut it back even further. So for now I'm going to take it off right here. I may even go lower as I step back and look at the bush as I make progress in my pruning. Now we've got some other growth here. Again, it's twiggy coming out to the side, and then we've got branches growing backwards, and all of those are causing conflicts with other limbs, and they're crowding out the center of the bush. So there's another limb that's a good candidate for removing. You can see that each time I'm removing some of the dead wood, the twiggy growth, I'm also removing some of the flower buds. And if you look on here, you can see these reddish buds. They're rather large and swollen. Those are actually the flower buds. The leaf buds are really tiny and barely visible at this time of year. But it is not a problem to remove some of the flower buds. In doing so, you have less fruit being produced on the plant, but the plant can put its energy into those individual fruits, and actually they'll be larger and juicier than having a lot of small tiny fruits all over the entire plant. So this whole process of pruning is a really good thing to do at this time of year, and ensures you a good fruit production season in the months to follow. And that's it for this episode of the Hallelujah Gardening Guide.